Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Big Ten Quick Talk podcast. If you have not already, subscribed to the channel down below. And folks, we have a jam-packed show today. My top 25. Going to try and fit this in 15 minutes, so let's get right into it. Now going to some honorable mentions first. The bottom 5 teams that missed the top 25, so really the 26 to 30 range. In no particular order, Iowa, terrible at wide receiver. Not a believer in Cade McNamara over here. To Auburn. Auburn just there. They had a good portal class, but I don't see them as quite in the top 25 level yet. Wisconsin, they have a brutal schedule, and I don't think their roster is as well balanced as other top 25 teams. Iowa State, they're a team to look out for. I think they're right there with a couple wins. They could be in the top 25. Same with Oklahoma State. I think Ollie Gordon is one of the best running backs in the league by far. So this is what I think for these bottom 5 teams. Moving on from the honorable mentions now, let's get into this top 25. We'll go 5 at a time here. 21st ranked to the 25th ranked. At 25, we have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. The run game will be very, very good with Kyle Monangai coming back. Monangai led the Big Ten in total yards last year with over 1,200. And the defense will be very good as well. They return a lot of the defense. But the only thing I'm scared about with Rutgers is that quarterback play. I'm not sure that Ethan Kaliak-Manitz is the guy. He was flat out terrible with Minnesota last year. And we'll see if he can make the next step. But that's one big concern for Rutgers. Past that, I think they'll be a very safe team. At 24, the Texas A&M Aggies. Texas A&M getting Nick Scorton from Purdue. The edge was an absolute great pickup. I loved that. Probably my most favorite transfer portal move that happened this cycle, to be honest with you. I think he's that great of a player. And Connor Wegman at quarterback will be very, very good as well. He was on the trajectory to be very good last year until he suffered that injury. At number 23, the Virginia Tech Hokies. Virginia Tech, first in returning production. Easy schedule as well. And they get Kyron Drones to come back, probably the best player on their team, and with some more development, will absolutely break out, in my opinion. This is a really safe bet. And he's safe with the ball as well, as he only turned the ball over 3 times. Virginia Tech, not just the quarterback, we could go into more later, but let's move on. At number 22, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They have a great all-around offense. They have an incredibly balanced roster. Last year's defense ranked 11th. 11th, not just in the conference, just total. Ahead of teams like Bama, Oregon, Louisville, teams that had 9+ wins. Most of the really, really good players on that Nebraska defense came back. Guys like Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson, all these guys on the defensive line. I could go all the way down through with the safeties and whatnot. And wide receiver on the other side, stacked as well with the 100-yard plus guys in Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair transferring in, and some young speedsters in Jalen Lloyd and Malachi Coleman. Bottom line with Nebraska lost 4 games by quarterback fumbles, interceptions, and just bad quarterback play. And Nebraska just got one of the most talented throwers and quarterbacks in the 2024 class in Dylan Raiola. So I think that they've solved that problem. At number 21, the Oklahoma Sooners. I don't know about you guys, but I am a big believer in any Brent Venables defense. Those defenses were elite at Clemson. They've been elite at Oklahoma. So he gets the benefit of the doubt. Now, the big thing with Oklahoma is that they return Jackson Arnold. He will be the starting quarterback there. He has a huge arm, bigger arm than Dylan Gabriel. He's not as fast, not as aware as Dylan Gabriel. I think Dylan Gabriel's better in those capacities, but he has a live arm. And these wide receivers that come back that I will name, Jaleel Farouk, Andrell Anthony, Deion Burks, and Nick Anderson, all 4 of those guys were starters at some point last year, and they all contributed big time to last year's Oklahoma team, and they all come back. And I think Oklahoma will have an extremely good offense because of this, because of the aerial attack that they will bring, and Brent Venables' defense will be very good as well, so I have them ranked here at 21. Moving to our next segment here, we have at number 20, the USC Trojans. They will have a very, very good offense. Zachariah Branch will be one of the best wide receivers to come out this year. Millard Moss, will be a very good quarterback under the Lincoln Riley system. And Lincoln Riley will have the benefit of the doubt when it comes to offense. He will have the offense looking like an elite offense this upcoming year. But the defense is still the biggest question mark. They did get a couple transfers in, a couple notable ones, I think from UCLA in the secondary. And they did bring in D'Anton Lynn as defensive coordinator. I think it was a great hire. But can this defense go from being one of the worst ranked defenses last year to being an above average or even average defense in 1 year? I don't know. That's a huge question mark for me, which is why UCLA is lower on the in my top 25 than others' top 25s where I've seen it higher. So USC, I think, is right here good at 20. At number 19, the Arizona Wildcats. Fafita and McMillan will be probably the deadliest duo in college football. One of, if not the best duo in college football. Noah Fafita is, you gotta look at him to believe him. I think that he's one of the best quarterbacks out there right now. I really think so. And one last point on Arizona. Arizona did not lose their whole entire roster. They did not lose too many people when Jed Fish left for Washington. They didn't lose too many people. Notably, they didn't lose Fafita and McMillan, but a lot of other players, they maintained their depth, and that's why I think they will be really good here at the number 19 spot. At 18, I have the LSU Tigers. This may seem a little low, but their defense is not very good at all. Their defensive line, they don't have any depth there, and they don't have any good players there at all, in my opinion. And in the secondary, they're very weak there as well. At linebacker, they don't have a lot of depth there as well. And I really think that Harold Perkins will be very good at linebacker for LSU. But that's about all they've got on defense. The offense will be very good. I still believe that their offense will be good, and their offense lifts them to this number 18 ranking. But just I don't see the hype when it comes to LSU. Now to Clemson. I know it's really fun to hate on Clemson and Dabo Swinney right now, but I still believe that Dabo Swinney has a really good system insofar as really good at the fundamentals, a lot like Jim Harbaugh. Great at the fundamentals, great at coaching, tackling, great at coaching, blocking, knowing the playbook, all that jazz. Now, that's what I mean by system in that opinion, in that context, not when it comes to transfer portal. That's a whole topic for another video. But Clemson has Barrett Carter coming back at linebacker, one of the top linebackers, if not the best linebacker in the nation. Guys like Phil Maffa coming back at running back. He was very, very good last year in the limited role that he had. And Cade Klubnik, he had potential, but he has a long way to go. And he can, if Dabo Swinney can develop him into a pretty nice piece, then Clemson will be something this year. I think Clemson really, their season comes down to the development of Cade Klubnik, in my opinion. But their strength of roster has them here at 17. At number 16, Kansas. Jaden Daniels is a must-see player. He'll be in the Heisman race at some point this season. Guarantee it. Neal, great running back. And they have lots of players in the secondary, most notably Kobe Bryant, but they have a lot of really good players in the secondary as well. A lot of pretty good wide receivers. I mean, Kansas has it set up this year to really put their mark on the college football world. Moving ahead here into the top 15, rankings 15 to 11. At 15, we have the Kansas State Wildcats. Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards have incredibly high ceilings, and if they can be developed, which I suspect they will, which I'm incredibly high on, I think that they will be a top 15 team here at some point in the season. I think they will be, I think, the team to beat right there with Utah in the Big 12. Speaking of Utah, at number 14, we have the Utah Utes. They have a culture of winning there with Kyle Whittingham. They always win. Doesn't matter who they have. Even last year, they pulled out 8 wins. 8 wins, I think, when they did not have their quarterback in. They had fluctuation all over the place when it came to injuries and whatnot. And Cam Rising returns fully healthy, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year. And I think that this culture of winning and this, Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches in the league. in college football. I firmly believe that. At number 13, Tennessee, the Volunteers. Nico Yamavella is the real deal. He is a great player, and I really think that his development, he really showed against a top-ranked Iowa defense last year, just shredded them last year. At number 12, we have Penn State. They have a retooled offense and a pretty stacked defense, but I'm not a huge believer in Drew Aller at quarterback. If they had gotten a 5-star like Dylan Raiola or whatnot on their team, I would feel really good about them. I just don't feel like the potential is there with Drew Aller as coming out as a 5-star player. He's really taken the opposite direction of some of these other 5-stars that we are seeing around the league right now. But again, they have a stacked defense. They have the duo running backs in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton that are very good as well. They have a pretty decent offensive line. Wide receiver does worry me a little bit, but they did get Julian Fleming in. So I think Penn State deserves their number 12 ranked ranking. At number 11, Miami. Their portal additions put them here. There's no other way to put it. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. They got Cam Ward in, one of the top coveted quarterbacks in the whole transfer portal cycle. They got one of the best running backs from last year in Martinez from Oregon State. And now they just landed one of the best edge rushers in the portal overall in Tyler Barron, who was, I think, the 5th ranked edge rusher last year in the SEC. And the SEC put out a ton of really good edge rushers in that class. So Miami, they weren't no slouches last year either. They still retain a lot of good players from last year, and these portal additions really put them over the top here. I'm incredibly high on Miami at 11. Moving into the top 10 here. At number 10, we have the Missouri Tigers. Brady Cook and Luther Burden return. Probably one right there with Fafita and McMillan, the best quarterback wide receiver duo in college football. And Missouri, yes, they're going to be, I think they're not as well-rounded as last year's team. I think last year's team had an elite defense. They just played in a very tough SEC conference. And their defense, I don't think, will be as good as last year. I don't think the offensive line will be as good as last year. They lost a lot of players on the defensive line and offensive line, but they replaced them with some pretty good ones as well. I just think they'll take a little bit of a step back in that aspect, but I still think they're a top 10 team here at number 10. At number 9, Florida State. Florida State had an excellent transfer class, getting guys like Omarion Cooper, the corner from Colorado, 2 interior offensive linemen, Terrence Ferguson from Bama and Richie Leonard from Florida, and the top player here, edge Marvin Jones Jr., the 5-star elite playmaker from transferring in from Georgia because he didn't get enough playing time, really, and he will get that at Florida State. Also, DJ Uiagalelei coming in, he performed pretty darn well at Oregon State last year, and if he just carries that over and gets slightly better with better development under head coach Mike Norvell, he will turn into a pretty darn good quarterback in my estimation. Moving on to our number 8 8th ranked team, Texas. Quinn Ewers returns. He does have some question marks when it comes to reading the situation and being consistent, but I think he is a top quarterback. Plus some portal additions like Isaiah Bond, and I think Texas will be a pretty darn good team. Maybe not as good as some people are saying, but this is where I have them. At number 7, Michigan. The Harbaugh style will still remain, like we talked about earlier. I think that Harbaugh will be instrumental really going forward, even when he's not on Michigan, because his style remains, such as elite blocking, elite tackling, elite at knowing the playbook, elite at the little things, which made Michigan so great in 2022 and 2023. And I think that that Michigan has a really, really good roster either way, and their coaching staff still is one of the best, and their offensive line is loaded. Wide receiver room could use some help, but their defense will be elite as well. Notre Dame, the defense is loaded. Notre Dame had a top 10 defense by some metrics, top 7, top 5 last year, and they return a ton from that defense. Incredibly deep at defense, and their portal additions such as Riley Leonard, the quarterback. I think he is criminally underrated. I think that he is one of the better quarterbacks in college football. So that rounds out that segment. Really quick apologies if this video goes over 15 minutes. Going to try and keep it under 20. Now, going into these top 5 teams, we'll do it one at a time. Alabama. Are there concerns without Nick Saban at the helm? I think that those concerns are mitigated with the incoming head coach in Kalen DeBoer. I think Kalen DeBoer is one of the best head coaches in the league. Their recruiting class, transfer class, top 3. Their hardest games will be versus Georgia and at Tennessee. I think that they split those games. And Milroe will be a Heisman contender. He's just that good and probably a top 5 pick in the NFL draft next year. How will the defense play with all of the with a lot of defensive members of the team going to the NFL? I don't know. But Alabama here at number 5. At number 4, we have the Ole Miss Rebels. Without the transfer portal, this class, this ranking really doesn't exist. They got the number 1 ranked player, the number 1 ranked defensive lineman, Walter Nolan from Texas A&M. They got a stud edge rusher from Florida in Princely Umamielen. They got, I mean, you could just go down the list here. I'm going to name a couple more, but the list just goes on. Wide receiver Antoine Wells Jr., safety corner Trey Amos, linebacker Chris Paul Jr., and the list goes on. So they really have constructed a top 5 talent roster and a top 5 roster in general. I have them here at number 4. Really, though, their defense will have to be great in order to win big. Their offense will be very good with Jackson Dart at the helm. Their offense will be carrying the load, but their defense has to be able to step up in big moments, and these transfers signify that, yes, they will be able to. At number 3, we have the Oregon Ducks. Much like Ole Miss, they're here in large part because of their transfers. Evan Stewart, the best ranked wide receiver, and right there with Walter Nolan as the 1-2 best players in the transfer portal coming over from Texas A&M, a wide receiver 1 will be a stud in the Oregon offense. Dante Moore and Dylan Gabriel coming in, excuse me, round out that quarterback room. Jabbar Muhammad, best corner in the class, going to Oregon, one of the best, if at least. And then one of the better D linemen, Jamari Caldwell, coming from Houston. And like with Ole Miss, I could just keep going down the line if I wanted to. But really, with this team, with Dan Lanning, they have to win the big one. They do. And I think that they are set up to win the big one. The offense will be amazing like it always has been and like it will continue to be, in my opinion, and one of the more talented teams in college football. Their hardest games are at Michigan versus Ohio State. I think they split or take both of these. At number 2, we have the Georgia Bulldogs. In Kirby we trust. You see that caption there. Kirby Smart, head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, is the best head coach in all of college football. And you could possibly even say pro football too. Just if you combine the two, I think Kirby Smart is one of the best head coaches in this generation, right there with Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. Those types of coaches. Carson Beck is elite, probably the best quarterback in this in this year coming up, and the defense will be the best again with Malachi Starks in the back end, holding up the secondary. Carson Beck is a tremendous player, and I think that Georgia, I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt, even if we don't know, even if we aren't an expert on the team, such as I am. I think that they still deserve the benefit of the doubt. They come in at my number 2 ranking, their hardest games versus Tennessee and at Alabama. I think they split or take both of these. And my number 1 ranked team is the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is really splitting hairs between Ohio State and Georgia at this point for the number 1 spot. They're really right there with each other. I just gave the nod to Ohio State. They're completely stacked everywhere. They are bona fide elite at running back, interior offensive line, defensive line, corner, and safety. And they're good to very good everywhere else on the field. The wide receiver room has potential to be elite. The quarterback room has potential to be elite. I think, their hardest games are going to be versus Michigan and at Oregon. and I think they split or take both of these games. So that's it for the top 25. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to enable notifications by clicking the bell icon. All that jazz. Subscribe, like, comment your thoughts down below. I want to see them down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy, and I'll see you later.